U.S.C. 9832. 5. Eligible child. The term eligible child means a child who is age 3 or 4, on the date established by the applicable local educational agency for kindergarten entry. 6. Eligible provider. The term eligible provider means a local educational agency, acting alone or in a consortium or in collaboration with an educational service agency, as defined in Section 8101 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, 20 U.S.C. 7801. That is licensed by the state or meets comparable health and safety standards. B. A Head Start agency or delegate agency funded under the Head Start Act, 42 U.S.C. 9831 et seq. C. A licensed center-based child care provider, licensed family child care provider, or community or neighborhood-based network of licensed family child care providers, or D. A consortium of entities described in any of subparagraphs A, B, and C. 7. Indian tribe. The term Indian tribe has the meaning given the term in Section 4 of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, 25 U.S.C. 450b. 8. Local educational agency. The term local educational agency has the meaning given the term in Section 8101 of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. 9. Poverty guidelines. The term poverty guidelines means the poverty guidelines updated periodically in the Federal Register by the Department of Health and Human Services under the authority of Section 673 of the Community Services Block Grant Act, 42 U.S.C. 9902. 10. Secretary. The term secretary means the Secretary of Health and Human Services. 11. State. The term state means each of the several states in the District of Columbia. 12. Territory. The term territory means each of the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the United States Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. 13. Tribal organization. The term tribal organization has the meaning given the term tribal organization in Section 658P of the Child Care and Development Block Grant Act of 1990, 42 U.S.C. 9858N. 14. Urban Indian Organization. The term Urban Indian Organization has the meaning given the term in Section 4 of the Indian Health Care Improvement Act, 25 U.S.C. 1602. B. Universal Preschool. 1. Appropriation. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary for each of fiscal years 2022 through 2028, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, such sums as may be necessary to carry out this section and provide the federal share of the cost of universal, high-quality, free, inclusive, and mixed delivery preschool services, on a voluntary basis, to children throughout the states under this section, including providing the federal share of the cost of state activities described in subsection C. 4. 2. Secretarial reservations. The Secretary, in collaboration with the Secretary of Education, shall reserve, from the amount appropriated under this subsection, A, not less than 4% for payments to Indian tribes, tribal organizations, and urban Indian organizations for activities described in this section. B, not more than /12 of 1% for the territories, to be distributed among the territories on the basis of their relative need, as determined by the Secretary of Health and Human Services in accordance with the objectives of this section, for activities described in this section. C /12 of 1% for eligible local entities that serve children in families who are engaged in migrant or seasonal agricultural labor, for activities described in this section. D, for federal activities, including administration, monitoring, technical assistance, and research. $165 million for fiscal year 2022 and $200 million for fiscal year 2023, and 2, for each of fiscal years 2025 through 2028, not more than 2%, e. $2,500 million for each of fiscal years 2022 through 2027 to improve compensation of Head Start staff consistent with subparagraphs A, I, and B, 8 of Section 640, A, 5 of the Head Start Act, 42 U.S.C. $98.35, A5, notwithstanding Section 653, A1 of such Act, 43 U.S.C. 9848, A1, and F. $1,250 million annually for each of fiscal years 2023 through 2028 to carry out the program of grants to localities described in subsection E. C. Payments for state universal preschool services. 1. In general, a state that has submitted, and had approved by the Secretary, a state plan for universal preschool services is entitled to a payment under this subsection. 2. Payments to states, A. Preschool services. The Secretary shall pay to each state with an approved state plan under paragraph 6, an amount for each year equal to 100% of the state's expenditures in the year for preschool services described in subsection D, for each of fiscal years 2022, 2023, and 2024, 2. 90% of the state's expenditures in the year for such preschool services, for fiscal year 2025, 3. 80% of the state's expenditures in the year for such preschool services, for fiscal year 2026, 4. 70% of the state's expenditures in the year for such preschool services, for fiscal year 2027. And LV, 60% of the state's expenditures in the year for such preschool services, for fiscal year 2028. B. State activities. The Secretary shall pay to each state with an approved state plan under paragraph 6, an amount for a fiscal year equal to 50% of the amount of the state's expenditures for the activities described in paragraph 4, except that in no case shall a payment for a fiscal year under this subparagraph exceed the amount equal to 10% of the state's expenditures described in subparagraph A, for such fiscal year. C. Non-federal share. The remainder of the cost paid by the state for preschool services, that is not provided under subparagraph A, shall be considered the non-federal share of the cost of those services. The remainder of the cost paid by the state for state activities, that is not provided under subparagraph B, shall be considered the non-federal share of the cost of those activities. 3. Advance payment, retrospective adjustment. The Secretary may make a payment under subparagraph A or B of paragraph 2 for a year on the basis of advance estimates of expenditures submitted by the state and such other investigation as the Secretary may find necessary, and may reduce or increase the payment as necessary to adjust for any overpayment or underpayment for a previous year. 4. State activities. A state that receives a payment under paragraph 2b shall carry out all of the following activities. A. State administration of the state's preschool services program described in this section. B. Supporting a continuous quality improvement system through the use of data, researching, monitoring, training, technical assistance, professional development, and coaching to support providers participating or seeking to participate in the state's preschool services program and to support such providers in meeting the requirements of this section. C. Providing outreach and enrollment support for families of eligible children, including specific outreach to families of underserved populations. D. Supporting data systems building. E. Supporting staff of eligible providers in pursuing credentials and degrees, including baccalaureate degrees. F. Supporting activities that ensure access to inclusive preschool programs for children with disabilities, including, as applicable, activities that redesign or restructure existing preschool programs, as of the date of the activity, to improve inclusive services for children with disabilities. G. Providing